Today we'd like to look at Microsoft Fabric. But before we get into Microsoft Fabric, we'd like to look at today's digital transformation landscape. And understanding the landscape that we're within, we could then see how Microsoft Fabric, which is that end-to-end data analytics solution from Microsoft, is able to help you unify your data estate. And once you've had that understanding through our demo, we then see how you can get started with Davin and Microsoft Fabric. Now, for most of us, we would have had quite an interesting experience over the last few years, switching from remote work to totally a hybrid experience or some sort of challenge that would have faced us through the COVID pandemic. And coming out of that, the industry has recognized that almost 87% of organizations believe that they need artificial intelligence to give them that competitive edge in the market that it exists. Now, your artificial intelligence solution is only as good as the data you have. Now, that data, as Derek, our chairman, would have pointed out, that Davin has built his business on business applications. And you may have data in a business application, you may have data in some siloed environment somewhere else, but you need to have that data curated in a way where you can actually get analysis out of it. Now, these challenges that we face right now in terms of siloed systems, so I mentioned that you have data in an application somewhere, you may even have data in a drawer, and that's where Adrian's presentation comes in very handy to take all that paperwork and make it digital. You also have the challenge of data governance and security. We live in an environment where almost any moment now your company could be hacked. We're facing where technical challenges in terms of skilling. Not everybody's able to have the expertise to do all of these things. So all of these different areas are cause for concern when it comes to bringing value out of your data. Another thing we can look at is we are faced with a very complex BI environment sometimes. So you try to get data from these different areas, but say, for example, the data that's coming from HR, you're having a problem with trying to structure that into data that's coming from sales. You have also where that data could be exposed to so many risks. So our starting line always seems so complex. It always seems so challenging. And Fabric is coming in to more or less unify and bring about a finish line where everything is more or less seamless and filled in that SaaS environment where you can flow from your data to your curated sets, finally your reports. Now, your environment may not look anything like what I showed before. That's one thing I want to point out. But at the end of the day, you do want to get insights. So Microsoft Fabric is modular in a way where you can bring your data into that one lake environment, govern it using Microsoft Purview, and have that AI sit on top of that data in the one lake environment. You can pull in your data using Azure Data Factory. You can also create a data warehouse if you need to, or a lakehouse. And of course, everybody is familiar with Power BI. Power BI is that side where you actually consume the reports, how you build the visual, the look and feel, and somebody can interact with that and then say, okay, yes, I can understand where we're going. Now, to understand this flow a little bit better, of how we're going to unify your data estate and transform your data using these AI solutions and then empower everyone in your organization. Because that's another thing you need to realize, that doing analysis is not only for your IT team or not only for some technical expert in your organization. Everyone should be empowered to do analysis within your environment and making sure that governance is done throughout every stage of this flow. Now, you may have multiple sources, as I pointed out before. Having multiple sources is not the challenge. The challenge is usually making sure that you have these sources bringing their data into that unified data foundation where they are placed in their respective domains that someone can then access and do analysis based on that. Now, you may use a powerful AI solution to be able to analyze that data that's inside there. And in Microsoft case, we use Copilot to be able to go through. So you can have Copilot that works with you in Data Factory. You can have Copilot that works with you in Power BI to be able to analyze that data that's inside of there so that you can then be able to have some sort of respectful insight that you can share throughout the organization. Now, Copilot, what Copilot also allows you to do is that it makes it easier for everyone within the organization to be empowered to bring out that analysis. And that analysis does not have to be only a Power BI report. It could simply be some sort of executive summary that you quickly share with someone in an email that they can then say, yes, we need to action this as soon as possible. And now, even though it's number four, it's actually the most important part. Without any governance, so without that use of Microsoft Purview to govern this entire infrastructure, you're leaving yourself open to have your data leaked or to be broken into through hacking, which is not any desire that any company would have. So making sure that you set these governance practices from the start allows you to build about a secure data culture within your organization. Now, enough of all this talking. I'm a person that not caught up with too many slides. So I'd like to drop us into our demo of a fabric journey. Now, this journey is for Megastar Distribution Center, a fictional company, but it's following a typical journey for companies, be it in the Caribbean or be it anywhere in the world, of moving from multiple data sources into a unified platform where they can do reporting. And I'll pass over to Jade to walk us through this.
Thank you, Stefania, and good morning, everyone. So, as Stefania mentioned, we'll be looking at Megastar Distribution Center, and it's a fictional business that deals with inventory, warehousing, and sales. And the business has locations in 4 Caribbean countries. So, for our fabric journey, as Stefania mentioned, we'll be looking at 3 particular personas. We'll be looking at Data Factory, where you can ingest your data from multiple sources. We'll be looking at data engineering, where you can create data warehouses and or lakehouses. And of course, we'll be looking at the Power BI persona, where you can analyze and visualize the data that we worked on in the other 2 personas to give you actionable insights for your business, or in the case of our demo, for Megastar distribution. So just to get started, without further ado, I will share my screen and you all should now be seeing my Fabric landing page. And as it says, it's all of your data in one location. So we are working towards getting a unified data estate for Megastar distribution. So we'll get started with our data factory persona, which allows us to do some of the back-end work, that is building out our BI or analytics environment. And it's recommended here that I can choose a data flow gen 2 or a data pipeline or Azure Data Factory to get started. For the purpose of our demo, we used a data flow. So for those of you who are familiar with Power BI Desktop, my data flow environment should look exactly like Power Query. And that's because it literally is Power Query online. So you'll do your transformations in here and it will be saved to a data destination of your choosing, which in our case is a lakehouse. And once you've finished making those transformations, you'll publish your data flow so that the transformations are reflected in your lakehouse. So with that, we'll switch over to our Synapse Data Engineering persona, which is where we can do some more data wrangling, which basically means that in this persona, we can transform our data further as needed for our specific BI or analytics requirements. So let's start looking at Megastar's Lakehouse. And just to reiterate, a lakehouse is the home for all of our data that we would have brought in. It stores all of our tables or queries. And right now in the Lakehouse view, you're seeing I can access all of the tables we brought in. And I have a preview of 1,000 rows per table. So we're just seeing what our inventory data would look like. In here, we also have the ability to get data. So let's say our business started using additional sources of data or needed to bring in new data. We could use this feature to upload files, create new data pipelines, or new data flows to bring that data into our lakehouse and just have everything in one place. You'll also see I have the ability to create a new semantic model, which helps for specialized reporting. So let's say a particular department wanted to look at the performance of managers. They can create a semantic model with just the tables of data that they need, all being pulled from this lakehouse. We also have access to notebooks. So notebooks, we can open existing or new notebooks. And here, persons who are more comfortable with writing code can just flourish in this environment. So they can write PySpark code to perform transformations, example, combining several tables of data into a single table. We also have our SQL Analytics endpoint. And in this view, we also have a preview of the data, of course, and we have the ability to create new SQL scripts. So you can write SQL scripts from scratch if you are comfortable with it and just save it as a view when you're finished to be used in your semantic models later on. Now, if you're not comfortable with SQL, that's okay. You can use visual queries, which allows us to simply add a table to the canvas, and we use the interface to perform the transformations. Once you're finished, you can also save your transformations as a view to be used, or you can click on View SQL to see the SQL code that Fabric would have generated to facilitate those transformations. As you can see, we also have access to notebooks in here, which we touched on before. We also have the model layouts, which is the environment in which we can work with our semantic models. So our semantic model might look a bit complex, and that's because we decided to use all of the tables we have access to for our demo report. So moving along to Power BI, we'll just touch on the landing page where we have the ability to create a new report or access reports that you would have been working on before. So here we have the final product, and we can see immediately at a quick glance on the bottom of our screen, we're seeing that Dominica, which is indicated by the purple ribbon, has been performing the best over the first 2 quarters of 2024, having sold a total of 16,000 products. Moving on to our inventory page, what we can see here is that, again, Dominica seems to have the highest inventory turnover. So let's look into that a bit more. And we'll do this by drilling through to our country analysis page. On this page, you'll see on the bottom of my report page, we have the revenue by month. And what we're seeing here is that typically looking at the performance, Dominica was able to generate above average income for each month that we have data for here. So we're seeing for 3 months, they would have performed above average, bringing in more than 3.24 million in revenue per month. Switching over to our warehouses page, what we're seeing here is we have a shift and pack rate view as indicated by these buttons. And we can see that their on-time delivery rate is at 32.5%. However, they have a target of 80%. And we're seeing that late deliveries have passed their target, so has early deliveries. So we're seeing naturally that Megastar needs to do some work on improving their delivery rates. Switching over to my warehouse by country view, I have two visuals here. I have the visual that I'm selecting play on that shows us manager performance by country. And on the right of that, I have a map visual that shows the different warehouses by country. So looking at our manager's performance, what we can see is Laura Imish seems to be performing the best for 2024 so far, and she is assigned to Dominica. So let's look into Laura's performance a bit more by drilling through to our manager's page. And on our managers page, we can see that Laura has generated a total of 2.49 million in revenue. And she also managed to ensure that the majority of her orders are delivered on time or early. Now, it's important to note that Laura manages two warehouses, and she would have dealt with a total of 6 orders and brought in 2.49 million in revenue. So perhaps Megastar's marketing and sales team would look into embarking on ventures to bring in more sales for Laura's warehouses. Moving along to our sales page, what we can see here is the total revenue that Dominica would have generated for the time that we have data so far. And we're seeing a total of 143.36 million in revenue. At the bottom of our page, we have total sales by year. And this visual is a forecasting visual, and it was built using the AI that Power BI has built in. And what this does is it's predicting the total sales for the next 5 years. So if we hover on 2026, we see that Power BI forecasts total sales for 2026 at 17.33 million in Dominica. However, we have an upper bound and we have a lower bound. And that upper bound value means that even though we're predicting 17.33, it can be as high as 21.79 million, or it can be as low as 12.86 million. So now that we've touched on AI, I'd like to show you all what we can do with Copilot. So using Copilot, I can generate an executive summary. So I chose give me an executive summary. Copilot is working on it. And here we have the response that we've gotten. And important to note, the source for this response is current page. So looking at the miscellaneous information that Copilot gave us, we're seeing that it's saying the forecasted values for sales drop in the coming years, depicting a possible decline as low as $11.99 million by 2029. And that's important for Megastar to know because just at a quick glance, we already see that we need to take action to try to prevent a decline. We can also do a summary based on the entire report, which we're looking at now. And here you see Copilot would have touched on all of the different aspects that we have in the report. So overall insights, we're seeing that the insights reveal that in 2020, we had the highest total sales, which accounted for 22.58% of the total sales over the 5 years that we have data for. And the range of total sales across the 5 years was between $19.45 million and $32.37 million. So just with Copilot, we would have already gotten insights that we didn't even need to dig into, and it was as simple as sending it a prompt. So with that, I bring my demo to an end, and I thank you for your time and attention, and I pass you back over to Safania.
All right. Thank you very much, Jade. So Jade took us through Megastar's journey of moving from a company that had data in different sources. They transformed that data using the solutions within Microsoft Fabric to then analyze that data in Power BI to give you those reports. And further to which they were then able to use Copilot to get deeper insights into what exactly is happening in the business. Now, that's just a taste of what Copilot can actually do in Power BI. And as I mentioned before, Copilot is also part of the data factory experience as well as the data lakehouse experience within Microsoft Fabric. So if you'd like to learn more as how you can transform your business with this intelligent data platform, you can click on the QR code that's going to come up after the Q&A session and book a session with Davin to be able to explore more.